The evening was quiet. The faint hum of the city outside Aaron Hale's small, modest home was the only sound accompanying the occasional drip of water from the kitchen sink. He sank into his worn couch, stretching his legs and finally letting himself relax after a grueling courier mission. Packages delivered, a few firefights avoided, and a small paycheck in his pocket. Life felt normal finally. Normal, that is, until a shimmering portal tore open in the middle of his living room. Aaron's jaw dropped, and the half-eaten sandwich in his hand hovered midair. The portal glimmered like liquid starlight, spinning and crackling with energy. Before he could even react, a figure stepped out. Tall, regal, adorned in full ceremonial armor of polished metallic hues, every detail gleaming as though forged from the stars themselves. The air itself seemed to hum around her. The alien queen of the Zalarian Empire, ruler of hundreds of worlds, feared and respected across the galaxy, was now standing in his tiny living room. Her presence alone seemed to warp space, bending the light in the room so that every corner of his humble home looked somehow inadequate. Aaron froze mid-breath. The sandwich fell from his hand, landing on the floor with a soft squelch. He hadn't even bothered to check for incoming calls. He never imagined he'd have to explain this. The queen stepped forward with slow precision, every movement measured and fluid. She surveyed the room with a piercing gaze that seemed to absorb the details of every mundane object. The cluttered coffee table, the flickering lamp, the stack of takeout boxes in the corner. She did not flinch at the low ceiling, the peeling wallpaper, or the hand-me-down couch. Instead, she scanned each item with a mix of disdain and curiosity. "Is this really your home, human?" Her voice was calm but carried the authority of 1,000 worlds. Every syllable resonated like an order. Even without intending to, Aaron felt like he had been summoned to a tribunal. Aaron swallowed hard. His voice, when it came, was a strained whisper. Yes, I mean it's my place, I live here." The queen's eyes narrowed slightly. "Your place, this cluttered, insignificant place." Her hands rested lightly on her ornate ceremonial staff, and the glow of her armor reflected across the walls of the living room, giving everything a surreal alien sheen. Aaron tried to recover. "I know it looks ordinary, but it's comfortable, it's practical." She tilted her head, studying him. Practical, primitive. Her lips curved just slightly, almost imperceptibly. It was the kind of motion that could intimidate or amuse. Aaron wasn't sure which it was meant to do. He took a step back instinctively, feeling the sheer weight of her gaze. He had faced combat zones, hostile planets, and deadly mercenaries, but nothing in his life had prepared him for this. A human had no authority here. Humans were small, fragile, and according to every galactic record, insignificant in the grand web of the Zalarian Empire. And yet here he was, standing in front of the Empire's queen in his living room. The queen moved again, gliding over the rug as if it were the floor of her throne hall. She knelt slightly to inspect a spilled coffee mug, then rose and inspected the cushions on his couch. "You call this comfort?" she asked, her voice echoing softly in the small space. "Your species' sense of comfort is curious." Aaron swallowed, trying to maintain composure. "It's enough for me," he replied. "Better than nothing." Her gaze shifted back to him, and this time the scrutiny was sharper. She was measuring not the room, but him. How had he survived in this world? How had he learned to navigate human life with the limited resources at his disposal? How had he even survived the border conflicts and courier missions across galactic sectors without being destroyed? "You survive," she said finally, more statement than question. "Despite your limitations, you endure." Aaron blinked. I try," he said, voice barely steady. The sandwich was now completely forgotten on the floor. His living room, his sanctuary, felt impossibly small under her gaze, yet somehow it was enough. The queen circled slowly, inspecting every corner. Her armor clinked softly as she moved, a gentle metallic sound amplified in the quiet room. Her energy field seemed to interact with every object, and the air shimmered faintly with the aura of her presence. Even the tiny ceiling fan above them seemed diminished, its gentle spin trivial in comparison. Aaron noticed the way her eyes lingered on a small personal detail, a photograph on the shelf of a human friend or a medal from a past mission. For a fraction of a second, she softened just enough that Aaron could detect it. It was fleeting, but it hinted at curiosity, maybe even a hint of respect. Before he could say anything, she straightened again. "You inhabit this primitive structure," she said, "and yet you persist. Interesting." Aaron swallowed hard, trying not to gape at the alien monarch. I guess humans are resilient," he muttered, her eyes sharpened. Resilient, yes. That may be your species' greatest trait. At that moment, a neighbor peeked through the blinds, squinting in disbelief, and another, and suddenly Aaron realized just how absurd this situation was. The queen of the Zalarian Empire was standing in his tiny living room, judging his existence, and he wasn't entirely sure if he should be terrified or flattered. The queen finally turned her attention fully to him, arms crossed, eyes blazing with an authority that seemed to warp the very air. "Human," she said slowly, "you are more capable than your dwelling suggests. Tell me, do you understand what it means to host a monarch?" Aaron opened his mouth, then closed it. Words felt inadequate. I don't think anyone's ever hosted a queen before," he admitted, voice low. "Especially in my house." Her lips curved faintly again, just enough to make the motion seem deliberate. "Then consider this a rare opportunity and a warning." The air in the room shifted, a quiet hum of energy from her aura brushing against every surface. Aaron felt the thrill of fear and awe mixed with a peculiar pride. He had survived firefights, evaded ambushes, delivered crucial missions, and now against all odds, he was standing in front of the most powerful alien in the galaxy, in his own living room. He glanced around at the mundane furniture, the modest decorations, the stack of unopened packages, and for the first time saw them in a new light. This was his kingdom, however small, and he had just defended it simply by being himself. The queen paused near the portal, her gaze once more sweeping over the room. "Interesting," she murmured almost to herself. "Surprisingly interesting." Aaron's heart thumped loudly. I mean, I didn't expect," he trailed off. She raised a hand, dismissing his words. "Human, this house is sufficient, but you will need to explain the teleportation error before I depart. For now, consider yourself observed." Aaron swallowed hard, nodding mutely. "Yes, of course, Your Majesty." She stepped back, preparing to return to her world, but her eyes lingered one last time on him, sharp, calculating, yet faintly amused. Backhand index pointing right ending hook. Queen scanned the room one final time, frowning, and asked the question that would haunt Aaron for the rest of the night. "Is this really your home, human?" The portal shimmered, hummed, and vanished, leaving Aaron standing in the quiet aftermath, alone, bewildered, and acutely aware that his life had just changed forever. Aaron Hale's brain refused to catch up with reality. The queen of the Zalarian Empire, in all her ceremonial glory, was standing in his tiny living room, examining the peeling wallpaper like it might contain secrets of the human race. He pinched the bridge of his nose and muttered, half to himself, half to the universe, "I need a drink, or a miracle." The queen, unaffected by human panic, tilted her head, her eyes sweeping the room with that unflinching, imperial scrutiny that had toppled warlords and terrified entire planetary councils. "Primitive," she said softly, then louder as if addressing him directly, "Tell me, human, do you always inhabit spaces so trivial?" Aaron stumbled over words, trying to salvage some dignity. "Well, it's compact, efficient. Cozy," his voice cracked somewhere between apology and desperation. She ignored him entirely, stepping over the coffee table without a second thought. Each movement was measured, deliberate, and somehow made the room feel impossibly smaller. The crystal vase rattled under her presence, but she didn't notice, nor did she care. Aaron's knees threatened to buckle under the sheer gravity of being judged by a galactic monarch in his pajamas. Then came the first ripple of chaos. Her drones, tiny hovering assistants shaped like polished metallic insects, zipped around the room. They scanned the couch, the fridge, and to Aaron's horror, the cat. His cat whiskers leapt into the air, hissing and clawing at one particularly persistent drone, sending it spinning toward the corner lamp. "Ah!" Aaron shouted, diving to catch both cat and lamp. A lamp shade wobbled dangerously, then toppled to the floor. He froze as the queen's gaze turned toward him. "Is this how your species manages domestic hazards?" she asked, voice tinged with bemusement, or was it judgment? Aaron couldn't tell. Yes, mostly," he replied, trying to regain composure as whiskers darted under the couch, sending cushions flying. "It's dynamic." The queen's brow arched imperceptibly. "Dynamic, indeed." She stepped closer, her boots clicking lightly on the linoleum, scanning his stack of takeout boxes and the half-empty soda cans on the counter. "And you consume what?" "Processed organic matter from disposable containers." Aaron swallowed hard. I try to recycle, I swear." He bent down, fumbling with a pile of boxes, desperately trying to present some form of competence in front of the galactic ruler. His human brain raced, calculating every misstep that could offend her centuries-old sensibilities. Meanwhile, the drones had begun scanning the kitchen appliances, and a toaster shot a spark. Whiskers darted again, this time toppling a chair. Aaron scrambled, apologizing to both the Queen and his cat. The Queen raised an eyebrow but did not intervene. Her expression said it all, amusement mixed with incredulity. Neighbors began peeking out their windows. A few whispered excitedly, "Is that the alien Queen?" "In his house." One neighbor pointed with both excitement and fear, causing a small crowd to gather outside. Aaron's quiet, peaceful evening had become interstellar theater. The Queen ignored the growing human audience entirely. She stepped to the fridge, scanning the magnets and photos. Her gaze landed on a small photo of Aaron with his team on a past mission. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "These humans," she murmured. "You survived through collaboration?" "Yes," Aaron said quickly, panic and pride battling in his chest. "We rely on each other, teamwork, trust, and sometimes luck." "Interesting," she said, then almost imperceptibly she smirked. Aaron froze. Was the Queen amused? Could a monarch actually be amused? The tension was suddenly punctuated by the toaster exploding in a harmless puff of smoke. Aaron jumped back, waving his arms wildly. "I told you, dynamic!" he shouted, more to himself than anyone else. The Queen studied him silently, then allowed a low, melodic sound to escape her throat. Was it a laugh? A sigh? Aaron didn't know, and he didn't dare ask, but her tone, whatever it was, made his chest tighten. The human in him recognized what the court had never allowed: approval, amusement, or at least curiosity from someone impossibly powerful. Aaron took a shaky step forward. "Look, Your Majesty, I know this is exactly palace-level decor." She raised a hand, signaling him to stop. "Enough words, human. Demonstrate your competence. Show me why a primitive being deserves to survive in such conditions." Aaron's eyes widened. He wasn't sure if she meant domestic competence or life competence, but the tone left no room for negotiation. He scrambled to tidy the room, picking up toppled items, gently corralling Whiskers, and even attempting to make some semblance of order from the chaos the drones had unleashed. The Queen watched silently, occasionally tilting her head to observe some minor detail, like the microwave door handle or the chipped mug. Her presence alone created a sort of pressure that Aaron had never felt on a battlefield. He realized that no firefight, no ambush, no alien insurgent had ever tested him like this, not physically, not mentally. Yet amidst the chaos, Aaron began to find a rhythm. Humans were adaptable, he realized. He might be in a small, cluttered home with an alien queen in full regalia judging him, but he could handle it. Improvisation, honesty, quick thinking, these were his tools. And slowly he began to see a glimmer of respect, or at least curiosity, in her eyes. The neighbors outside murmured nervously as the Queen finally spoke again. "Human, you manage, despite the chaos." Aaron exhaled, dripping with sweat but grinning faintly. "I do my best, Your Majesty. It's kind of our specialty." Her eyes softened fractionally. She scanned the room one last time, taking in the half-cleaned mess, the mildly traumatized cat, and the human who had, against all odds, navigated the unexpected intrusion with courage, wit, and integrity. Then, with the faint hum of her ceremonial portal powering up, she stepped back, towering and radiant. "This dwelling is your domain for now." Aaron's heart pounded as she prepared to vanish. "For now?" he asked, voice trembling between awe and nervousness. The Queen's eyes flicked to him, sharp, calculating, and perhaps faintly amused. "For now, human, yes, but next time I expect preparedness." With that, the portal shimmered and disappeared, leaving Aaron alone in his modest living room, Whiskers perched warily on the couch, and a sense of utterly surreal accomplishment coursing through his veins. He looked around at the chaos. Toppled chair, toaster debris, scattered packages, and then down at his hands. He had survived, not a firefight, not a galactic ambush, but the scrutiny of a queen. Somehow humans were still standing. Somehow he had earned curiosity. Aaron slumped back onto his couch. The city hummed outside, ordinary and quiet, but he knew deep down that nothing about his life would ever be ordinary again. Backhand index pointing right ending hook. The Queen's words echoed in his mind. "Next time I expect preparedness." Preparedness for what? Aaron didn't know, but he had a feeling that the galaxy and this Queen were far from done with him. The room was quiet now, but the tension still hung in the air, thicker than any human living room could contain. Aaron Hale's pulse was still racing from the encounter with the Queen, whose teleportation had completely upended his evening. He took a shaky breath, trying to regain a semblance of composure, but the Queen's gaze pinned him in place like gravity itself. She moved slowly, deliberately, stepping past the couch and the coffee table as though the space belonged to her rather than to the human. Each step resonated with authority, her polished ceremonial boots clicking softly on the linoleum floor. The drones hovered obediently behind her, scanning the room in perfect synchronization, adding an almost musical hum to the surreal scene. Primitive, she murmured again, her voice a mix of judgment and curiosity. Your species' concept of domestic order is fascinating. Aaron blinked. Fascinating, he repeated, unsure if that was a compliment or an insult. The Queen's eyes swept across the room. She paused at the stack of takeout containers on the counter. Organic matter processed and stored in single-use constructs. Inefficient, she said. Her gaze lingered on the half-empty soda cans, the microwave, the modest appliances of a species she deemed primitive. Yet you survive. Yes, Aaron said quickly, hoping to explain. Humans are adaptable. We make do with what we have. The Queen's eyes narrowed slightly. Adaptable, she repeated. Interesting, survival despite limitations. Her gaze shifted to a small bookshelf where a few tattered novels and a framed photograph of Aaron's friends sat. She leaned closer, studying the photograph as if it were a relic of an extinct species. Companions, loyalty, cooperation, traits that even your species barely understands, and yet you cling to them. Aaron swallowed, realizing she was analyzing him, not just the room. We look out for each other, he said softly. It's necessary. The Queen straightened, moving to the fridge. She opened it carefully, letting the door swing fully without touching it, inspecting the contents with an intensity that made Aaron's stomach twist. What are these substances? Edible yet primitive. They're food, Aaron replied, feeling suddenly defensive. Normal human food. Normal, she echoed, scanning yogurt containers, condiments, and leftovers. Curious, I expected efficiency, nutrient packs, purified matter. Not chaos. Aaron's lips twitched. We value taste, comfort, familiarity. Familiarity, she repeated almost thoughtfully. Primitive comfort, a strange concept for one who rules worlds. Her attention shifted again, landing on a small trinket on the counter, a medal from a past mission. She tilted her head, eyes narrowing. This, she said, pointing to it, suggests achievement, human ingenuity, courage. Recognition from your peers? Yes, Aaron admitted, a flicker of pride breaking through his nerves. It's a small token, but it means a lot. The Queen's expression softened fractionally, imperceptibly to most humans, but not to him. She studied the medal for a long moment, then looked up. You endure. You navigate chaos, limited resources, and unpredictability, all with minimal guidance. Aaron's shoulders relaxed slightly. Her words, though alien and formal, carried approval. She actually respects this, he thought, incredulous. Then came a sound, a faint whirring. One of the drones had detected the cat again. Whiskers, emboldened by the Queen's attention elsewhere, darted between Aaron's legs, hissing. The drone swiveled to follow the movement, and Aaron groaned. Ignore it, the Queen said without looking back. Even your companions are chaotic. Aaron shot a nervous glance at her. I'm doing my best. She turned, studying him directly. You are more capable than I expected. Perhaps there is value in your species, unpredictability. Aaron blinked, struggling to reconcile the words. Unpredictability, he repeated. Yes, she said. Your species' methods are inefficient, chaotic, yet effective in ways calculated beings cannot foresee. This human ingenuity is fascinating. He couldn't help the small, incredulous laugh that escaped him. So you're impressed? Her gaze softened imperceptibly. Curious, she corrected. Curiosity is the proper term for now. The Queen's attention shifted once more, moving toward a small stack of papers on his desk. Aaron froze. Please don't, she glanced at him, raising an elegant hand. Fear not, this is observation, not judgment. Yet everything reveals everything. Aaron exhaled slowly, realizing that this was a different kind of challenge than any battlefield or mission. Here, he wasn't fighting for survival in the traditional sense. Here, survival meant composure, honesty, and demonstrating human adaptability under scrutiny. The Queen finally straightened, her ceremonial staff clicking softly against the floor. Human, she said, her voice carrying authority and an unexpected intrigue. Your species is underestimated. You endure in spite of limitations. You thrive in environments hostile or indifferent. I will remember this. Aaron nodded, suddenly aware of the gravity of her statement. Remember. The Queen of the Zalarian Empire remembers me. His pulse quickened. She turned toward the portal that shimmered faintly at the edge of the room, preparing to leave, but not without a final glance. Her eyes locked onto his. "Next time, human, I will see more than your home. I will see you." Aaron's breath caught in his throat. He wanted to say something clever, profound, or witty, but only managed a nod. The portal's energy hummed, and then she stepped through, leaving the room silent once again, save for the hum of drones and the faint meow of a slightly traumatized cat. Aaron looked around his living room. The overturned cushions, the mess of takeout containers, and the faint smell of burnt toast now seemed trivial. What mattered was that he had survived the scrutiny of a queen, and more than that, he had impressed her in ways he could barely comprehend. He sank back onto his couch, heart still racing. The world outside the window seemed quieter, smaller, and yet somehow more significant. This wasn't just a visit gone wrong. This was the beginning of something bigger. Backhand index pointing right ending hook. Aaron realized, with a mix of dread and excitement, that the queen's curiosity had marked him. She would return, and when she did, this quiet home would no longer feel like a sanctuary. It would become the stage for something extraordinary. The day after the Queen's unexpected visit, Aaron Hale could hardly focus on anything. Every mundane sound, the hum of his fridge, the distant traffic, even Whiskers purring, felt charged with tension. The Queen's words echoed in his mind. "Next time, human, I will see more than your home. I will see you." He hadn't known whether to feel fear, pride, or sheer terror, and yet part of him felt exhilarated. The humans' audacity, their adaptability, and their refusal to bow completely to alien authority were precisely what made them survive, and the Queen had just recognized it. That evening, a familiar shimmer tore through his living room again. The air rippled, the lights dimmed briefly, and the faint harmonic hum of Zalarian technology filled the space. The portal stabilized, revealing her ceremonial presence once more. This time the Queen's expression was unreadable, but her eyes burned with an intensity that made Aaron's pulse spike. "Human," she said, her voice calm but commanding, "you survived the initial scrutiny. You endured observation. Now you must demonstrate your capacity fully." Aaron's stomach twisted. Demonstrate his capacity. What did that mean? Mental acuity, courage, domestic skill? The Queen didn't elaborate. He'd have to improvise, as humans always did. She gestured toward the living room table. On it were three objects: a delicate crystal vase, a complex mechanical device he didn't recognize, and a small locked box emitting a soft glow. "You will handle these items," she instructed. "Without error, without hesitation. Failure is noted." Aaron's eyes widened. Okay," he said cautiously. He started with the crystal vase, lifting it gingerly. Its weight was unusual, its surface slick and cold. He examined it carefully, remembering every detail of his training in alien artifact handling. The Queen watched silently, as though she could see into his mind. Satisfied that he had handled the vase without damage, he turned to the mechanical device. It clicked and whirred in response to his touch, almost alive. He adjusted a few levers and buttons based on intuition and observation, noticing patterns in its movement. Slowly the device stabilized, its lights glowing steady instead of erratic. The Queen's expression remained calm, but Aaron caught a faint gleam of intrigue in her eyes. He could feel that he was gaining her approval, but there was still the small glowing box, sealed and humming with energy. He approached it carefully. Its lock mechanism was alien, intricate beyond human design. But Aaron was patient, methodical. He analyzed the patterns, noticed subtle cues, and slowly, carefully decoded the mechanism. The box clicked open, revealing a tiny holographic projection of the Queen herself, speaking in her own voice, repeating phrases of protocol and history. Aaron stared, realizing that this was no ordinary test. The Queen wasn't merely assessing dexterity or intelligence. She was testing human adaptability, ingenuity, and composure under pressure. And somehow, against all odds, he was succeeding. The drones hovered silently, observing his every movement. Whiskers had taken refuge on the couch, watching with the cautious curiosity of a feline witnessing a ritual. Finally, the Queen spoke. "Human, your species' methods are unrefined, chaotic, and yet effective. You adapt to circumstances, improvise when confronted with the unfamiliar, and maintain composure under observation. These are qualities rare among my people." Aaron swallowed hard. I just do what I can," he said, voice trembling slightly. "It's what humans do." The Queen's gaze softened fractionally. "Your species is underestimated. And yet you endure. That is remarkable." Aaron felt a surge of pride mingled with disbelief. He had faced countless threats, but never had he felt the weight of approval from someone who ruled countless worlds. This wasn't just a test, this was recognition. She stepped closer, her boots clicking softly against the floor. You are more competent than I anticipated. Most humans would have faltered. Most would have destroyed the vase, mismanaged the device, or failed the box entirely. Yet you succeed, by instinct, by observation, by perseverance. Aaron's chest tightened. Thank you, Your Majesty. I'm honored, he replied, carefully bowing his head. Her lips curved into a subtle smile, enough to unnerve and encourage simultaneously. Curiosity, human, that is what keeps you alive, that and honesty. The universe values neither qualities lightly, yet here you stand. The air shimmered as she paused, looking at him intently. Know this, she said softly, her voice carrying a weight that made the room seem smaller, the lights dimmer, and the air heavier. Next time I will observe not objects, not trivialities, but you, your decisions, your motives, your essence. You will reveal yourself fully, for I intend to understand what drives a human to endure. Aaron exhaled slowly. He hadn't expected the test to be philosophical as well as practical. I'll do my best, he said, feeling the gravity of her words settle on his shoulders. The Queen's gaze softened, but her authority remained absolute. She stepped back toward the portal. Your adaptability, your ingenuity has been noted, but the real test is yet to come. Prepare, human, you will be observed again. The portal shimmered and vanished, leaving Aaron alone in the quiet aftermath. The objects remained on the table intact, yet their significance had changed. They were no longer mere possessions. They were evidence of his ability to survive, to adapt, and to impress the most powerful being he had ever encountered. Aaron sank back onto his couch, heart racing, mind spinning. He realized something profound. This was more than a test of skill. It was a test of human essence itself. And for the first time, he understood that surviving the galaxy wasn't just about firepower or strategy. It was about ingenuity, honesty, and courage under scrutiny that spanned worlds. Backhand index pointing right ending hook. Aaron knew that the Queen's next visit would push him further, beyond skill, beyond adaptability, into the realm of true understanding. And he would need every ounce of human ingenuity to survive it. The day after the Queen's first test, Aaron Hale thought he might finally relax. His small home, modest though it was, had survived the scrutiny of an interstellar monarch. The vase was intact, the alien device stabilized, and the glowing box had been opened without incident. Surely, things would return to normal. He was wrong. It started with the hum of the portal. The familiar shimmer appeared in his living room, and before he could react, the alien queen stepped out again, her ceremonial attire glinting under the soft earth light from his window. Behind her floated the tiny, humming drones, scanning everything in perfect synchrony. Aaron froze. He had nothing left to prepare, no training left to draw on. This was entirely unplanned. Human, the Queen began, her voice calm, but carrying that same commanding authority. Your habitation has been observed. Now we proceed to evaluate your capacity to maintain order under chaotic conditions. Before he could ask what that meant, the drones began flitting through the room, bumping into lamps and scattering loose papers. Whiskers hissed, leaping from the couch and knocking over a stack of magazines. Aaron lunged to intercept her, nearly tripping over a stray box of cereal. Control yourself, he muttered under his breath, eyes darting between the Queen, the cat, and the flying drones. The Queen's gaze never wavered. Chaos reveals character. Your species' ingenuity is most evident under duress. Aaron groaned, perfect, chaos, my specialty. At that exact moment, a neighbor peeked through the blinds, jaw dropping. Another neighbor appeared at the doorway, phone in hand, filming what was clearly a fully armored alien monarch invading someone's home. Aaron's sense of panic skyrocketed. Please, don't call anyone, he shouted, waving frantically. It's complicated. The Queen raised an eyebrow, her expression unreadable. Complicated? For a human, perhaps. For me, merely observation. One of the drones buzzed closer to the fridge, setting off a tiny spark. Aaron dove, catching it just before it touched the metal, sending papers and utensils flying. He looked up to see the Queen's eyes flying. He looked up to see the Queen's eyes